Hold up a little, Bobby, right in front of that.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hometown Cable. Our program is called What's Going On Here. I'm Bob Venn, Calvin Castine with the camera as usual. And this picture you see in front of you on this February the 19th, 1995, is a picture that was taken just about 4 days later, back in 1945 on Iwo Jima. The February 19th is the 50th anniversary of the landing on Iwo Jima. And going along with our Pearl Harbor story and our D-Day story, we've got some local people who are going to talk a little bit about Iwo Jima. There's two people here who were on Iwo Jima that first day, and until this day did not know that they were there. We're going to talk about that together. They didn't know they were there together. I beg your pardon. They knew they were there, but they didn't know that they're...
The other guy was there.
Yeah, one Rouse's Pointer and one Champlainer. We'll be talking with them later. But before we get into that, we're going to talk with Tom Batha, who's going to kind of set up the whole story as to why Iwo Jima was important and how the war was progressing up to this point. Tom Batha, if you know, is a former co-worker of mine at the United States Customs, where he's employed, and also the mayor of Rouse's Point. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Bob.
Tom, tell us a little bit, first of all, about Tom Batha. Where'd you come from? How did you get to Rouse's Point?
Well, I just took the civil service test, and they stationed me in Champlain, and that was sort of where I wanted to be anyway. I'm from western New York, so I've been here almost 21 years now.
You found a home.
Yeah, well, I wanted to live in a rural area, and this is a rural area.
Okay. Well, the way our story is going to go today is we're going to have another person coming along who's a history buff, and that's Willard Martin from Chazy. And on my left here is Leon LaFountain from Rouse's Point, who was in the 5th Division of the United States Marines. And on the right over there is Jack LaFay, now from Champlain, but native, I guess, of Rouse's Point. And he was with the 4th Division there in Iwo Jima 50 years ago. And when you hear our story, you're going to say they're very lucky to be here on this 19th. We're doing this on today, the 16th, in the KFC rooms in Champlain, New York. Tom, tell us what you've done. I've asked you to kind of get this thing set up for us, and we weren't there. We know that. We'll tell people right off the bat.
No.
Okay, Tom.
Well, you first, everyone, I think, should know some history about World War II, but just to rehash it a little bit, we all know that Japan attacked the United States on December 7th, 1941 at Pearl Harbor, and then simultaneously on Wake Island and the Philippines. Of course, they're on the other side of the international date line, so it was December 8th for them. Of course, Pearl Harbor was just an air raid, and they had 2 attacks and sunk a lot of ships and killed a lot of Americans that were in peacetime. Philippines Army forces on Corregidor and Bataan Peninsula held out until May of 1942. They held out for 5 months, and they ran out of food is what happened. And they surrendered, and they were interned by the Japs, and a lot of them were killed in captivity. Now, that was the thrust of the Japanese offensive, and they were trying to get to Australia and take Australia, and they wanted to protect all this area here. They didn't really have any desire to capture and take Pearl Harbor or the west coast of the United States or anything like that, but they did want to protect all these islands here. They wanted to be considered their own because they got rubber from Borneo, and they had their oil reserve supplies all down in here, and it was very important for them, they thought, to stop us before we became too strong with our military buildup that was going on in 39 and 40 because of the war going on in Europe. So they thought, this is our last chance to secure our own position in this world, and that's what they did. So everything looked pretty dim for the United States. Most of the resources were going towards the European theater, or were going to be headed that way. If it wasn't for direct involvement, it was Lend-Lease. They were sending ships and tanks and trucks and everything over there for the British. So there wasn't much left on the west coast and in the islands to stop them. And of course, nobody realized that the war was actually going to start, that it was going to be for real. They knew it was coming, but nobody really knew how bad it was going to be until it started. So we declared war on December 8th, and we began moving troops and equipment to Australia. Well, actually, they started to go to relieve Wake, and they sent the 1st Marine Division. Is that the one that went to relieve Wake?
I'm pretty sure.
And they got diverted. They were headed for Wake Island here, and Roosevelt realized that it was too little too late. The island had already been captured. We weren't set up for amphibious operations, and there was Japanese controlled all the sea lanes with their submarines, so he diverted that Marine Division to Australia. Now Australia, you remember, had all their troops had been sent to North Africa and Europe to help in the Mediterranean theater, to help the British. It was a British colony. They were, Churchill said send them up, and he sent them up. So they were left almost defenseless, and then this Japanese offensive starts, and they almost got invaded. We had a couple of major sea victories early in 1942. Coral Sea, Battle of Coral Sea, which stopped the potential Japanese invasion of Australia, and the Battle of Midway, which stopped their offensive and was really the kind of a turning point in the war as far as putting them on the defensive. Then we began an island campaign to drive the Japanese off all these islands that they'd captured and put them back and defeat them in their own country.
Now, Tom, to interrupt you here, at this point, we weren't ready for war. We just didn't have the supplies, as you say. Mm-hmm. That's what happened in the Philippines. And geez, we just were not ready. We weren't ready at all for this.
No.
So it takes a year or two for us to really get underway.
They had to convert all the civilian industries over to defense, 100%. Total mobilization. Stop making cars and start making trucks and tanks and landing craft and everything that they had.
Now we know there are a lot of people out there who, of course, who don't remember World War II, but it was a bloody 4-year war. We were in the Pacific, and we were also in the European theater. At the time the war started, I was 13 years old, and it ended before I got out of high school, so I never went to fight. I went in 1946. And I'm a veteran as much as just as these two gentlemen are. I had the benefits of the that we got as veterans, and I'm considered the world. But I never saw a battle of any kind. It really officially ended in 45, and I went in 46. And Tom, you weren't there either. You were still trying to get into school, probably. Were you born yet?
No.
You weren't born yet. Okay, Tom. By the way, this pointer belongs to Tom. Look, you got the shell, what do you call it, the shell and the bullet on the end, and here's the other end, and he used this for a pointer he brought with him.
Ed Trombley's old hunter safety pointer.
Yeah, and you are a history buff, really. You enjoy this type of thing. Okay, go ahead. We'll do a little bit more, and we'll take a break in a few minutes, but go ahead.
Okay, well, I'll kind of speed this up a little bit, but anyway, the first U.S. offensive island campaign was Guadalcanal. I believe, let's see, we have a veteran from Guadalcanal in Rouse's Point.
We do. Now, this right here in the Solomons. This is the.
That's way down. That's how close they got to Japan.
Yeah. Now here, Australia. Here is Japan up here. Here's the object right here. And there's Tokyo right up in the middle here. That's what I've marked on here. This is a National Geographic map, by the way, that I have some of my maps. It's a 1943 map during the war. We'll maybe think of who was at Guadalcanal from Rouse's Point later on. Go ahead.
Okay, well, Benny Loire.
Benny Loire, okay.
I believe he was. Anyway, they had a Cairo conference in Egypt in 1943, in November. And I'm getting ahead a little bit here, but like I say, they decided on this island campaign. And they adopted the air plan for the defeat of Japan, which was codenamed Matterhorn. And that was called for air attacks on the mainland of Japan from China and from the Marianas, which is these islands here.
Here, the Gilberts, the Marianas right here.
Okay. So that was the reason we took these islands. Now, of course, some islands they bypassed, but a lot of islands, you couldn't take this island if you had enemy troops on that island, because they just keep having air raids and everything else, and you wouldn't have it secured. So what we had to do was secure every island as we went. And then MacArthur had made sort of a political commitment and a moral commitment to return to the Philippines. So he's got sort of a two-pronged offensive. You got the direct offensive to go to Japan to end the war, and then you've also, he was in a hurry to get the Japs out of the Philippines because of all the things that they were doing there.
When he left and said, "I shall return," that famous picture, did he go to Australia and New Zealand?
Yeah,
That's
he
where
was
he
in
was.
Australia, and then he moved up as the troops went forward. He moved, but his main headquarters was in Australia.
Okay. Before we start moving on, let's take a short break and we'll be right back. Thank you for watching Hometown Cable on this February 19th, a very important day in the history of United States, particularly the United States Marines who were bomb blasted. You will not believe what you're going to hear, what happened on that fateful February 19th, 50 years ago today. Thanks for watching, folks. Okay, we're in Australia and we're in Guadalcanal. We're going to start heading north and northwest, I guess, along with our World War II battles.
Okay. Like I said, the Cairo conference was, the idea was to get to Japan and start bombing it directly. Saipan and Tinian provided airstrips along the way. They're right here.
Right. Yep.
Okay. And they had, by this time in 1943-44, they'd come out with a B-29 Super Fortress. They didn't have that at the beginning of the war. They just had B-17s and B-24s, and they were sort of more of they were considered heavy bombers at the time, but they weren't that long ranged, and they couldn't make bombing runs from here all the way to there. That's why we had to keep getting closer and closer with these islands. I mean, if we had the planes we have now, you just stay here and forget all the islands and just go direct, but you couldn't do that then. So they started the air raids from Saipan and Tinian. Of course, Tinian was where the Enola Gay took off at the end of the war with the atomic bomb. But anyway, that was 1,300 miles from Saipan to Japan.
From here to Japan.
Yeah. So it's 2,600 mile round trip. And of course, planes weren't as reliable in those days, and of course they had enemy shooting at them too. So they wanted to get Iwo Jima, which was as an emergency landing field, and also it had 3 airstrips on it, 2 completed and 1 under construction. And they could also base offensive airstrikes from Iwo Jima. Also, of course, they were fighter planes that were raiding our bombers as we went from Tinian up through here that they wanted to get rid of. Yeah, they had, it was kind of marginal, Iwo Jima, for the Japanese. It had limited tactical value to them. They used it as a fighter intercept base and early warning base. But it was a strategic value to us because we could, once we took it, then we could launch raids against them, and they couldn't stop us. So this little island that didn't have any value to anybody through most of the war, all of a sudden became very important near the end of the war. It was 5.5 miles long and about, at the widest part, 2.5 miles wide. That's the size of the island, talking 10, 12 square miles, that was it. Mm-hmm. But they fought for every foot. So Iwo Jima is 650 miles from Japan. Parallel to the island campaigns, like I say, we were going up this way with the islands, and then MacArthur was kind of branching off to do the Philippines, which, and he invaded Luzon, and where that, the reason I'm mentioning that is because that kind of adversely affected the Marine operation, because he diverted some of the naval gunfire support ships to that invasion, and so they didn't have an adequate number of them for Iwo Jima for the pre-invasion bombardment. They only got 3 days, and if it wouldn't have been for General Smith fighting with the Navy the whole time, they wouldn't have got that, because there was several of the other island campaigns where they went in with way too little pre-invasion bombardment. And then, like I say, this didn't have much value to anyone. They didn't send General Kurabayashi, who was the Japanese general in charge of the island defenses. He was sent there in June of 1944 to prepare defenses of the island. It was no surprise that we were looking for it to go. It was no surprise to the Japanese. They could see it coming, but they were fighting. They thought they'd stop us farther south, and of course they couldn't, because they just didn't realize what they'd gotten into. The battle started naval gunfire support on February 17th. And again, I say it wasn't as adequate as it could have been because they didn't have enough ships there. And also, they had to stop it a little bit earlier because they had to start planning for the invasion of Okinawa.
Which was here.
That was the last one, I think, well, except Formosa. I guess that those were in together. But Okinawa was going to be the base for the actual invasion of mainland Japan. That's where the landing craft and everything were going to assemble and leave from there. And they had a narrow window when they could attack Okinawa. I believe it was in April of 45, and then they get into the typhoon season. So they wanted to wrap up Iwo Jima real fast and move on to Okinawa and finish that up.
They were 350 miles from mainland, from Okinawa.
Yeah, Iwo 650. Okay, the 4th and 5th Marine Divisions landed on Iwo Jima on February 19th. 75,000 troops went ashore on D-Day. Marines were commanded by Lieutenant General Howland M. Smith, who was known as Howland Mad Smith. He was fairly old for a general officer in the field, and it was his last field command. I believe he was like 58 or 59. General Kurabashi had planned for defense in depth. Now that's different than the way the other island campaigns went, where they tried to make these waterfront stops on the beaches, stop the invaders before they could get inland, and these bonsai charges where they have masses of screaming, yelling Japs running with their swords at them, and they weren't very effective. And so his philosophy differed from these other battles, was that he was going to have this defense in depth. And there was some disagreement among the Japanese higher-ups on whether that would be the most effective. So they consulted the German general staff, and the Germans said, they looked at the island, they looked it over, and they said, no, you can't stop them on the waterfront. You're going to have to do it with pillboxes and everything inland. But the Japanese Imperial Navy still wanted some beach defenses, so they diverted some of their resources and built 135 pillboxes on the beach.
There were only certain places that these Marines could land, so they didn't have to worry about the northern part and so forth. They were
right,
so they could concentrate them in
right.
one area, I think.
Well, I'll show you on this other map here in a minute here where we landed and how we did it and what they had planned for us. Like I say, the 135 beach defenses that they spent probably 3 months building in the fall of 44, the Marines cleared them all out in 3 hours. Mount Suribachi was captured on D3. It's the third day of the battle. That's this picture here.
Yeah, Suribachi is important. This picture taken there, which is probably the most well-known picture in United States history. The other one they talk about is Washington crossing the Delaware, but this one here has gone down in history as the most important picture, the most recognized picture, and this is taken at the top of Mount Suribachi. Just a big pile of stone and caves where the Japanese were.
Now the first crippled B-29 landed on Iwo Jima on D-14. It's the 14th day. They were still fighting for the island. It was still, well, a very active battle, and this plane came limping in and landed. Then the battle ended more or less on D-36, D plus 36. It would be March 26th. The 5th Marines returned to Hawaii, and they were replaced by the 147th Infantry Regiment of the Army, who took over mop-up operations and garrison duty after the war, or after the main battle. But it was still going on even then. There was still more fighting. We can look at this.
Yep.
Let's see. Okay, this Mount Suribachi's on this end here, and it was lightly defended, but it did have some large seacoast artillery. And what happened with that, we landed a reconnaissance force in strength on the 17th, 2 or 3 days before the actual invasion, because they needed to get some samples of the sand and how the reefs were and all that stuff. So we sent a large force of destroyers and landing craft in to put these frogmen ashore to get those little reconnaissance. The Japanese thought that was the big invasion, so they unmasked all these hidden guns, and some of them were pretty large, up on Suribachi. And of course, as soon as we saw them, we knew where they were, and we just cleaned them all out. Some were very large, 155s and 205 millimeter guns. Had those been hidden till the actual D-Day landing, they figure thousands of Marines would have been killed, because this is the landing beach right here. All along here is where they went ashore. Now, by the end of the first day, I believe, first or second day, they'd actually gone all the way across. They didn't like landing like this because they were flanked on both sides. They had Japanese here on this mountain firing down on them, and they also had them from this end here. Now, what people don't realize is that they had their guns, their cannons, and artillery pre-registered. That means that you could have a cannon over here on the other side of a mountain or in a ravine and have it all measured out and decide exactly by a grid work where you wanted each shell to go. So they could shoot at everybody over here without even seeing them. And the guys that were being shot at with the artillery had no idea where it was coming from. They couldn't, they could see a pillbox and defeat that, but they couldn't get over here to take that one out at the time. So that was how the defenses were planned. This is just honeycombed with tunnels and hundreds of thousands of feet of tunnels and pillboxes and spider pits, and it wasn't very good. Every square inch that he could fortify, he fortified. They had 22,000 Japanese troops on the island, and that number was limited by the water supply. He could have brought more on, but they couldn't have lasted as long. Now, our intelligence was defective on this island, and they had estimated that there would be no more than 13,000 troops based on the water supplies. So they'd underestimated by half.
The estimates by the military were that there'd be 15,000 casualties of the American force to capture this island. 15,000. They knew this was going to happen. You're sending people like Lee and Jack into this, and you know you're going to have 15,000 casualties. That includes, of course, injuries. That's not all dead. There are 15,000 casualties. A casualty is wounded or killed. And it turned out there were more than that. They were being optimistic. And that very small piece right here, and I had never known about this all set up just to raid on that one little area. They just covered this. Okay. Anything else that you have, Tom,
That'll be pretty...
that pretty well covers what you wanted to say? We'll take another break here and be right back. Again, you're watching not a reenactment, but a tribute to all those many Marines and those people that fought 50 years ago today for us so that we could end this battle against the Japanese, this war. And two of the people who were there and right in the thick of the battle were Leon LaFontaine on my left and Jack Lefebvre on my right. The two L's, the L's were there in the alphabet so that we were well protected. We'll be right back. I hope no one out there thinks that we're trying to glorify war by reenacting or mentioning these different battles, but it was a time in the history of the United States that should never be forgotten. A lot of people did a lot of suffering so that we could have the freedoms that we have, and I'm not going to get into that a lot except to mention that. Two more things. Calvin was mentioning that we're going to be doing something in May for VE Day, the war over in Europe, and again in August for VJ Day, when the wars were over and all the celebrations. And then if anybody out there in our viewing area that wants to talk with us on those days, and we'd be willing to share your experiences during the war and where you were that day, we'd be very glad to have you. And we'll, anybody that wants to, just contact myself, Bob Venn, or Calvin Cascade, HOME, 5663-298, 4663, HOME. And mine's in the book, 298-3971, or if you see us around and you want to do something, please let us know, and we'll be getting back to you on that. How did today come about? How did this program? Well, we were in St. Mary's doing a little story on St. Mary's about 2 weeks ago, and this gentleman to my right here, Jack Lefebvre, was in visiting his daughter, our very able secretary there, Debbie LeBoncher, and I guess he mentioned something about How'd it come? Did you mention VJ Day or something? I mean, Iwo Jima, right? And Calvin said, okay, you want to talk? And he says, oh, no, I don't want to say anything. Oh, no, get somebody else, see? Well, Calvin said, think about it. Well, I got home one night, I went to Customs. And while I'm up at Customs, Tom Bassett said, one of your best programs you ever had was that D-Day, invasion of Normandy. I really enjoyed that. You ought to have more of that. As a matter of fact, you ought to do something on Iwo Jima. And you remember I told you there was somebody that we had talked to, and I couldn't remember who it was. It was in the past week at that time that we were going to try to do something, and he said, fine. And I said, would you be willing to help? He said, absolutely. I got home, and my wife said she had seen a guy named Jack Lefebvre, and he said he'd be willing to talk. So then I remembered who it was, and we got on from then, and the name came up of Leon LaFountain also being there, and we've looked for others and haven't been able to find anybody. Jerry DeSalle from Shazy. And Calvin contacted him, but he's in the hospital and couldn't make it. So he's the third one we were thinking of getting. And Willard Martin, who's going to be here later with some pictures, is a history buff, much like Tom is. And he went in after the war, and he retired from the service. But that's how this one came about. And we've been setting it up for the past week or 10 days, trying to get everybody's time available. And here we are at the KOCs on the 16th. And thank you very much again, Jack. I'm glad you two guys backed out of this, because sometimes, they do. We found out when we got here today that they didn't know they were there, I said before. He didn't know that Leon was there, and Leon didn't know. You knew each other before the war, right? You both knew each other. They were both in the Marines in two different divisions, and they were probably within quarter of a mile? Less than that.
Very far.
Heading in the same direction on shore in two different divisions. Let's start a little bit, first of all, with Leon. Leon, tell us a little bit about Leon LaFountain. You're from Rouse's Point originally?
Yeah, I was born in Shazy, and my father moved in Rouse's Point in 1938. I've been there ever since.
So when you left from Shazy?
No, I left from Rouse's Point.
Okay. Oh, that's right, 30. I beg your pardon. Yes, you went in 42? 42. And you were how old at the time?
20.
Yeah, we're good. Now we know how old he is.
Yeah.
Okay, but you were 20 when you went. Just young cannon fodder at that time.
Yeah.
Okay. And Jack, you were also brought up in Rouse's Point?
Yeah, I moved there when I was 3 years old.
From where?
Plattsburgh.
And so you grew up together, you went to school together, you about the same age?
No, I'm about 3 years younger.
Younger.
Have you met Mr. LaFay? Oh, you're younger.
Yeah,
Have you
yeah.
met Mr. LaFountain?
Yeah.
Mr. LaFountain, you can say hello to here. You're 3 years younger. So you were, what, 17?
17
when you went in?
Right.
Yeah, same age as my brother Ken.
Did you know any better?
No,
So you went in, let us say here, in 42 also.
June of 42.
How do you get assigned to the 4th or the 5th Division? Do you have any control over that? No control?
You go where they tell you, that's it.
So you both did, where did you do your basic training, Leon?
Paris Island.
And where's that?
South
Carolina.
Carolina.
South Carolina, okay. And same
Paris
time?
Island.
12 weeks there.
All right. What month did you go in 42?
July.
June.
You were there at the same time.
Right.
Did you see each other while you were there?
No.
Too many.
You couldn't even talk to
No.
the next barracks.
You couldn't?
Which is only about from here, that wall apart.
You mean they wouldn't let you talk?
Oh, no.
No restricted.
Very strict.
The Marine training is pretty strict, isn't it? All right. They were still using Paris Island, right,
Yeah.
for training now? Was there more than that one place for training for the
Yeah,
Marines?
it's out in California.
There was another.
Camp
Pendleton was out there with another one. All right. Then let's just, as we go along here, I'll kind of refer back and forth. When you left Paris Island, where did you
I
go
went
from
to
there?
Norfolk, Virginia.
Okay.
And we, a group of us went there, and we guarded the naval base there. See, the Marines guarded the Navy, and the Naval guarded the Marine base.
At the time in 42, were the Marines a separate unit or were they part of the Navy?
The 20% Navy.
20% Navy at that time. Then they became a separate later on. So when you left, where did you go from July?
Camp Lejeune, North Carolina.
Waiting to get shipped out?
Well, they started forming the 4th Division. I was in the 23rd Marines, and then they split us up, and I went in the 25th.
Now, what do you mean by the 23rd and 27th? What is that?
The regiments.
That's a regiment within the division.
Right.
Oh, this is a good time for this. This is a good time for this. I had some figures here. Something I talked to Jack on the phone.
Oh, they are.
Let's just talk a little bit about this. A division. Let's start the other way. The lowest you can have as far as groups is a squad.
Right.
Is that right? Right. How many in a squad? I think you told me 13.
13 plus what?
We had 9, I think.
9.
The ninth one was the squad leader.
Okay.
I mean, that was ours. I don't know.
No, we had 13.
You had 13, and the leader of that squad is a
Sergeant.
sergeant. Then you have next up is a platoon.
Right.
These are divisions, led by a staff sergeant or a lieutenant.
Well, you always have lieutenants.
You always have a lieutenant. Now, the platoon is made up of 3 of the squads. Is that all right?
I should have brought my book.
Have you forgotten this, Liam? Okay. I know this is something you don't learn it today, but give you an idea of how this is set up. And you can help me with this, Tommy, if you want. They say 3 squads of 9 each, 9 or 13 or 15, make the platoon. Then you have 4 platoons that make up a company. Is that all right?
As far as I can remember.
Okay. So you're getting up now, based on these figures, somewhere between 150 and 200 men in a company. There are 3 companies in a battalion, which is another, as you move up. That would give you...
Plus the headquarters.
Plus the headquarters, exactly. So you're talking 450 to 600 men, maybe, in a battalion. Then above that, you have a regiment, and there's so many battalions, and I don't know how many, in a regiment. And then when you go above the regiment, you get the division, which is the 4th Division and the 5th Division that they were in, which includes a headquarters, 2 infantry brigades, I don't know what a brigade is, 1 light artillery brigade, and certain auxiliary troops. This is where you make up your division, all right? The 4th Division or the 5th Division, and they go down from there so it gets small at the top, and at the bottom you got all these people.
They got that from the Romans.
They got, is that, all right, that's the way it was set up?
That's the way the military set it up after the way the Romans had it.
And you have these a lot of leaders in between each one, and they all report to that one person who then reports up all the way up the line, and they know what's happening. All right.
What makes it complicated, though, Bob, is that in actual combat, they change all these things around. They reinforce it. They add extra people. They'll put an extra on the squads. They might have 2 BAR men instead of 1, and or they might add mortars in there or something. And then plus the Army's different than the Marines on the way that their divisions are made up. I think they were maybe more similar during World War II, but now there's no similarity between them. They don't call them divisions. They got expeditionary forces and all kinds of stuff now.
Is it also true that the Marines, unlike the Army, are not someone that comes in and maintains an island? You guys take it over and leave, and someone else comes in and does the housekeeping afterward, right? And then they're off to another battle. So you might say, and I'm not degrading or taking away from the Army, the Navy, or the Air Force, but the ones who did that rough battle right on the shores, except for D-Day, when in Normandy, when all the armies came in too. But in the islands, the Marines were the ones that did the invading in most cases, right?
Didn't have that much army over there.
I think
No.
Guadalcanal had Army, didn't it?
Yeah.
They had quite a bit of Army troops in that.
Okay.
And the Philippines was a lot of Army.
You see, even though it's 50 years ago, you got to remember that this war affected everybody in the United States, although we didn't see battles here. You had to have coupons to buy your sugar and a little bit of everything else. To buy gas, everything was rationed. And before we go on further, at this point we've got you're at North Carolina and you're in Norfolk, Virginia. Don't forget that. We're going to come back and see what happens next. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, I know that from talking that Leon's first battle, and I guess your only real battle, was Iwo Jima. And it was enough. But Jack had several other campaigns before he got to Iwo Jima. So let's just catch up with Jack first. Jack, you were in North Carolina, you said, no? And what happened to you from there? What happened to you?
Went out to California
Now, do you move as a division, or did you move as a company, or how do you move?
as a division.
All right. Tom was reminding me also that above the division are a couple others, right? You've got
Cores.
a corps, there's so many, that is made up of so many divisions, and then above that is the Army.
Yeah, but that's, I don't know if the Marines had that. They have
Okay.
different nomenclature for it.
So you get into the big, so there's even more above the, I only went as high as the division because we were talking divisions here. Okay, so you went out to California, okay, and how many then would you be, say, in your group? You're talking 20,000?
Oh, I don't know.
Don't know, okay.
We, went,
Where did you do when you got there? Where did you go?
kept training there till from there we went to Marshall Islands,
Where were you in California?
Camp Pendleton.
Pendleton. How long? You remember?
6 months.
Now, during this time, you had leave, you could go into the cities and so forth. You didn't have to stay in the base all the time.
Well, you could go if you could hitchhike.
Oh, he was a little ways down, huh? Okay, so there came a time then, we're talking now, you're in late 42?
43.
Oh, you're into 43. All right, you're into 43, and then you went to the Marshall Islands.
Up to 44.
In 44. Now, the Marshall Islands were here. Now, did you go there as an invasion?
You're right.
Okay, so you invaded the Marshall Islands. Now, do you remember which of the islands you were on there?
Roy and Namur. Roy and Namur.
Roy and Namur. That's
Namur.
Namur. All right, now this was a, you go in by, you were on Navy ships,
You're right.
and then you were brought, all right, now that particular battle, to me, I haven't heard a lot about as much as I have of the others. It was just as, it was still fighting as
It was
much.
very-
Right, this is your first battle, right?
Right.
How did you feel? More than going to a picnic. Tell us what you were feeling as an 18-year-old.
I was scared.
You were scared. Well, that makes sense. I think anybody that says they weren't, yeah. But you were ready, though. You were well trained.
Well, I was well trained,
Uh-huh.
but you're never trained enough.
Yeah. Okay. Now, as you go ashore, right? You're in on one of the landing boats that we saw on D-Day, and they're going to be bringing you in. What have you got with you? What have you got? You got a backpack that contains what? As you remember.
I think, what they give us, 2 or 3 dinners,
Uh-huh.
K rations, and all our ammunition and blanket.
Uh-huh. Now, your ammunition, you can be reinforced with your ammunition once you get ashore at a given point. You can run out. Can't carry that much.
Carry enough to last for a couple days.
You did carry that much?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you have for a weapon? Something like this?
Yep. Not me. I carried a BAR.
What's a BAR?
Heavier.
Heavier.
21 pounds.
21 pounds. Think of 21 pounds. Think of a 25-pound sack of flour. Anybody that knows what that is. 21 pounds. And you had the ammunition for that. Now, is that on a belt of any kind, or are they
Clips.
They're clips that go into the bottom of the.
Right.
Okay. At that point, you were what? Corporal, private, and you were part of a squad
Right.
that was led by a sergeant. Now, those same people made up that squad all the time.
Right.
They were all right until someone is injured, killed, or whatever.
Right.
Okay. How long was your battle at the Marshalls? Your first battle? Do you remember how?
No, I can't remember.
Don't remember that. Okay.
I know we stayed and mopped up different islands after.
Uh-huh. But now, you got to sleep, right? When the battle is going on.
You sleep when you could. That was it.
Yeah. There weren't too many trees,
No.
so that you didn't have to worry about someone being above you, dropping something on you, huh?
There was a few.
There's a few trees. All right. When you left the Marshall Islands, what was your next? You went over to the...
Went to Hawaiian Islands to regroup and retrain.
back to the Hawaiian Islands? And how long would you be there? Like a month or two, or a little bit of rest and recreation, too?
Well, not much recreation, retraining.
You trained again, huh? You trained again.
Right. Because we went into Saipan, what was it, 6 months later?
Okay, that's over here. Saipan, if you remember some of the battles now these are battles that there's no question that you read a lot about, heard a lot about, and still do. movies were made and so forth, where Saipan, Tinian, and Guam, all three of those were John Wayne pictures, a lot of them, of course, and that's movies, but this was real. Now, in any of those battles, you were in Tinian and in Saipan both? You're talking number of days you were fighting. Any injuries during this time?
In Saipan, I got hit the first day.
How did you get hit? I
I
mean,
got a bullet in the shoulder.
a bullet.
Glanced off the shoulder blade.
So you weren't too far away from the person that shot the bullet in order to get a bullet, right? That wasn't fired from the other end of the island like you were talking about when you got a bullet in the shoulder. Then what happens to you when you get shot?
I went aboard ship for...
Oh, wait, no. They got to take you off and bring you to the back line somewhere, don't they?
We were on the...
You were right on the ship, right on the... You had just landed?
Well, 5 hours.
Oh, God, yeah. And you moved much in those 5 hours?
No.
You lay on your belly there waiting for something to
See,
happen.
we were in the reserve wave. The first wave went up to Hill 101, and we come in behind them to mop up behind them, because they just bypassed every Jap there was.
Yeah, they forgot a few.
No, they didn't forget them. That's their mission.
To go by it, right? To get
Right.
further in. Yeah. All right. So then you got shot in your left shoulder. Okay. So then what have you done? They take you to a ship.
Yeah.
Do you stay on the ship, or do they take you back to
I
the
was out there 10 days and went back in.
10? Oh, 10 days. You don't go anywhere else. That was your hospital for
Yeah.
10 days.
And then I went back into combat.
Were you ready in 10 days after being shot in the shoulder?
You do what you're told.
Yeah. Does this leave make you more scared the next time you go back?
I don't know how you can be any more scared than I was the first time.
We laugh now, folks, but I'll tell you. Now, you mentioned when we were off camera, you met the new man coming in here, Willard Martin, that there were 9 in your family. How many boys, how many girls?
5 boys and 4 girls.
Were there any
No,
of,
6 boys and
6
3
boys? Any of
girls.
your brothers were in at the same time?
No,
They were all younger?
Oh, yes.
So you were doing this for them. Leon, when we were talking with you, we'll get back to you again here, but
Nor
how many in your family?
9.
Oh, God. Each had 9 in your family. How many boys?
6 and 3.
6 boys?
Yeah,
Any of your brothers serve?
4 of them.
4 of them served?
I got their
Yeah.
picture there.
Okay, we'll get to that then, back later. All right, we'll come back here for a second. So then you were in Saipan. Was Saipan before Tinian, or?
Yeah.
So when you got to Tinian?
There was only a little ways between them, a couple of miles.
Well, 10 days, you're still wrapping this shoulder, aren't you? Aren't you still,
It started to heal pretty good.
yeah, but you still got band-aids or something? Not band-aids, bandages on there? Is there a medical group that are treating this once you're back in the battle?
You got corpsmen with you all the time.
How many corpsmen would you say?
One to accompany.
1 to a company. And a company is made up of 4 platoons. So 1 to 200 men or so.
Tell them who the corpsmen were. They're all
They're
Navy.
all Navy, yeah.
The Navy, and they don't have a gun either.
Marines don't have corpsmen.
Huh? The Marines don't have their own, so they had Navy corpsmen.
Right.
Yeah. Boy, aren't you glad to have them?
Well, they had it a lot rougher than we did.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they got to go out there when you're wounded and pick you up, and they can't fire back. Yeah.
Well, they could in that war.
They
They did
could?
in the European theater, but they did in the Pacific theater because they hadn't signed the Geneva Convention about that.
Well, of course, they didn't have the time to have did they carry a gun?
Yeah.
They only carried a
lot of
gun.
them did, yeah.
Okay. So they were pretty busy. Were there doctors? There were no doctors on the island when you were landing?
No.
No, in other words,
They
you had
come
the
in
corpsmen,
later.
and they would come in later, but then they'd bring you out to the ships when you were injured, huh? So when they brought in more people, they'd bring out the wounded, I think that's what was happening. If you remember, I'm going to Mr. Morelli, Albert Morelli told us that he was driving an LCVP when he was there at a D-Day in Europe, Normandy, and they'd bring in troops, and then before he'd go back empty, they would load the wounded with the stretchers back on him, and he would unload those and get another group. I guess he said they had to go over there, clean up the LC before you came back, and then with another group he'd bring in again. And that's how they got you off the island. All right. Anybody else in your squad injured on Saipan when you were?
I don't
know. You didn't care. You didn't care about that. All right. So then, when after Tinian and Saipan, did you go back to the Hawaiian Islands again?
Went back there,
Okay.
reinforce and retrain.
Right. Now, your next battle then was Iwo Jima.
Right.
Okay. Well, hold there on Iwo Jima. We take a break here for a short time, Calvin, and we'll be right back. We're, again, we're getting into Iwo Jima just about now. We're going to get into the battle and talk about, maybe a little bit about things that we would rather read about or hear about than be there. And maybe one more thing. Both of these gentlemen were very reluctant to come here and talk because they haven't talked much about this in 50 years, and I think it's time that they at least get some experiences out here because what these people went through, and a lot of the people don't want to talk. You can't have any bloodier, that's a bad expression, but nothing more disastrous, I don't think, than Iwo Jima, because there was no place to go, no place to hide, and you were just reined in, and some of the worst casualties ever in the history of the United States military were at Iwo Jima, and that's why we're talking about this on the 50th anniversary. Back to Leon LaFountain. Leon, when we left you, while he was off in the middle of the Atlantic, the Pacific, you were at Norfolk, you said.
Right.
Until about when? Do you remember?
I'd say I was stationed there maybe 7, 8 months or a year or something like that.
Okay. Now, during this time, are you training?
No, I was guarding the naval base, guard there, and also German prisoners was sent over. We were guarding German prisoners at that base.
I wonder how many people knew that German prisoners were brought from Germany to the United States. Were there a lot of German
There was
prisoners?
quite a few we had. 200-300 anyway.
So you were guarding prisoners.
Yeah, more of a guard duty.
Yeah. Now, was that? Do you remember whether the whole division was doing this? Must have been the whole division.
No, it was just at the naval operating base. It might have been maybe 100, 200 Marines there. I mean, they weren't too many.
Okay. So then there came a time when you started that you're going to be going overseas. You went where? To the West Coast also, Pendleton?
No, when I left Norfolk, I went to New River, North Carolina, and I think we had 4 weeks of training there. From New River, we went to Camp Pendleton.
Now,
We were just in the group, we weren't in the division. I mean, the 5th Marine Division was starting to form on the West Coast. And they sent so many men from different outfits on the East Coast to build up that 5th Division.
you went across by train?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then you were building. At this point, you had no idea what was happening to you at all. You have no idea. A lot of rumors, of course, right? And so everybody you had been in boot camp with, you were still with? Did you remember? Most of them. And and again, none of you have had any military action at this point.
No.
You were talking 43 now or 44? 44
I
maybe.
think it's 44.
Okay. You're figuring, God, if this works out right, you may not have to go at all, right? You're willing to guard the prisoners, huh?
Yeah.
Your food was better. Had a good place to sleep, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So you get over to Pendleton and they're setting up the 5th Division. And then when you left Pendleton?
Not exactly, but I think it might have been around October, November of 44.
Now they knew where you were going, but you still didn't have any idea at this point. All right. Was your training there as intense as it was when you were at boot camp?
I think it was a little better because we did more outdoor training and beach landings and all that.
So you actually made landings on beaches there in California, right?
Yeah.
And you say, I can't believe we're going to have to go do this, right? I would say.
You're right.
Yeah. Were you thinking that you're going to have to land? You didn't like that idea at this time?
No, I never I never had it in mind at that time because I didn't know. I mean,
No one's firing at you when you make these landings. Huh? It's just a matter of learning how to get in and out of the boats and off down the rope ladders and so forth.
so we had training like that at Camp Pendleton, and from Camp Pendleton we went down to Hawaii. We landed in Hawaii, and we had more outdoor training event, more with the grenades and all that stuff.
Now, you know something I want to ask both of you. You were writing home during this time.
Yeah.
Your letters from your mother's got to be one frightened person. I think your father too, but mainly your mother. She's wondering, my poor little boy, he's still my little baby, you know, and he's out there. And did they express these feelings in their letters about that you know, that they were worried about you and so forth?
The neighbors used to, when I got discharged, the neighbors used to tell me that my mother would used to sit in the window night after night, no lights on or anything, just worrying about us.
Yep. If you haven't gone through this, you don't know, and there aren't too many of the parents of these people who fought in the war still alive. The few, I guess, they would be in their 70s, I guess, and so forth. Huh? Well, some of them could have been 20s, though, you know, when they were born. You know, it's 50 years.
In their 90s.
That's right, the children were 20. They'd be in their 90s. Anybody out there, you're right. Thank you very much. All right.
Jack didn't answer that question.
Yeah, did you ever hear about what happened to your mother, how your mother was going?
No, I never.
You were the only one in it at this time,
Right.
right, of your family.
Right.
And just because there were 8 others didn't mean she didn't worry about you, and she probably worried about you as something fierce, you know. And she missed you, too, huh?
I don't know, they probably had more food to eat when I was there.
Did you write... Say that again, you what? They had more food left for the others, huh? Did you have the other 8 at that time, brothers
No.
and sisters? No, they weren't all born yet, huh?
No,
Okay. Did you write many letters during this period?
not too many.
Write many letters?
Not too many.
Not too
on
many.
the battlefield.
But you must have wrote to a girl now and then. Did you write to any girl? You wrote to girls? Did you write to girls
They
too?
never answered back.
I got some of my old ones here.
Oh, you got some of your. Okay, here's I better not mention this name here, but it's Lieutenant. Oh, Lieutenant from Montreal.
Nursing.
A nursing wrote to Leon here. This is the airmail letters, of course. Now they were censored, correct?
Yeah.
They opened your mail both ways. That you didn't know certain things, and that if you said the wrong thing, it was all blacked out. They blacked out these things so that you wouldn't have couldn't say the wrong things. This was sent in November 5th, 1945. So this is after you were in the 5th Marine Division, Fleet Post Office. Company E, 2nd Battalion, 27th Regiment. That kind of brings you right down to where you are. See?
Same thing.
And here's another one here. In the
One of my old girlfriends.
See here, look, it even smells like your girlfriend. Here, look, see here? Handwriting, well kept. Mementos of a sad and a dangerous time. Leon brought with him a book that I guess, Leon, this was set up by the
The 5th Marine.
5th Marines, have the book about the battles that they fought in the Pacific. And this shows San Diego, where they left, and went to Hawaii, as he mentioned. Then from Hawaii, they went to, I can't say it either now.
Yeah.
I was going to say Eniwetok and Kwajalein. And then from there over to Tinian, and then they didn't stop there, and then right up into to Iwo, right here, up to Iwo. So we'll take a break now. We'll show this is what happened, and then of course when they went up to Japan later, then when they came back, and then were disbanded, I guess, probably in what, 46 you got out?
Yeah, we 5th Division disbanded over in Japan.
Oh, you disbanded in
Yeah.
Japan.
So
And-
from the 5th, I went over into the 2nd Marine Division,
And when did you get out?
46.
46. this nurse, see, wrote to him in November 45 because he's going to be coming home soon. So she wants to let him know that she's still there. Still doing with it. We'll be right back. Our fourth person has joined us now, the person of Willard Martin from Shazy. Hi, Willard. Welcome. It's good to see you again. Willard, of course, talked with us, as we say, with the VFW back there in the Memorial Day, and we had the 32 or 35 pictures, and what a lot of information that man has in his head. He's I guess you might say a buff. He has, like Tom, they're in it they're here for a different reason. They have it because they got the history. I can't say they study it, but they read it and they live this in their mind. It's a hobby type thing. Would you say?
No,
It was your life, of course.
I went to a lot of these places after the fact.
After the fact. Okay. Well, so you retired from the Navy,
No, from the Air Force.
Air Force. In what year?
1968,
After how many years?
21.
And then later postmaster at West Shazy. And now you're retired.
It's supposed to be.
What do you mean supposed to? So what do you? Yeah, well, you got other things you do, but so now you got that double retirement.
Yeah.
Post office and wow.
So you're,
Living well now, huh?
well, I'm here.
Willard graduated in 1947 with my sister from Shazy Central, and knew my sister very well. And she said she saw that show. I sent her a copy, and she said she just loved it very much, Willard. So Willard is here, and we're going to be getting him into conversation along with Tom Bassam. You fellows have something you want to ask, or if I can give you a break long enough in between. Okay, one of the things we wanted to show you, and it was, like many people, a family of 4 here that were all in the military.
No, that's
Whoop, this is not.
No.
Is that your family? Oh, well, I'm going to let you show my family. This is not.
me and my buddy and 2 Japanese interpreters.
Okay, this is you and your buddy and the 4. Oh, I didn't look very close. I'm sorry, Mr. All right, this is a picture. You're going to have to get a copy made of this.
Yeah, no,
You're going to lose it, and the place to go, I'll tell you where to go in Plattsburgh and get copies of this, and you can keep this, because you need this picture starting to go on you. You got the picture of your brothers here? Oh, here you go, from the North Countryman. 4 brothers in the service of the USA. Who we got here starting from the left over here?
my brother Leo, he was in the Army Air Force.
Uh-huh. And then Leon is next. Okay.
And
Flipping around. And Lawrence.
Lawrence, he was in the Signal Corps in the Army.
All right. And Kenneth.
Ken in the Marine Corps.
Uh-huh. Now, one other thing, we're going to have to bring it up sooner or later, and although it's got to be tough on you, but not only did 4 brothers here serve, but your son. You have children, and you lost a son in a war later on. That was at Vietnam, and so you've had it 2 generations that you know all about war.
Yeah, and I had another boy in the service too.
Uh-huh. It's tough, and that's how many years now? 30 years that you've lost your...
Since 68.
68, nearly 27 years. And war is hell. War is hell. Man's inhumanity to man. War. And you see some of these battles, we talk about it. That's why maybe, Tom, you mentioned that when you were talking about your dad and that generation didn't ever want to talk about that they're part of the war, you know? Because it isn't pleasant. Some very, very poor memories. Do you ever dream about these things, gentlemen?
I did for the first few years, but after that, kind of go away.
Uh-huh. I hope this don't resurrect any of those dreams here. Did you dream about it too when you get back and all?
Well, I never really got over it.
You never?
For about 10 years.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so you were in how long? All told, 3 to 4 years? By the time you went in and got out?
In the Marines?
Yeah.
Not quite 4 years.
That's right. You mentioned off here, you went the second time around, you were in the Navy. You went back in the Navy?
Yeah.
What year was that?
48.
For how long?
7 years.
So you were in during the Korean
Yeah.
War. So you already had now 11 years, and you had gone over the I don't want to say over the hill. That is an expression, but you'd gone over halfway. How come you didn't stay?
Well,
You had enough.
two little girls, and I wasn't seeing them. I was aboard ship all the
Yes,
time, and
yes.
it was either them or stay in, so I got out.
Okay. And you went on, when you got back, you went to work at Sheridan?
Right,
For how many years were you at Sheridan?
33 years.
33 years. And Leah, what did you do when you got back from the service? Where?
I took an on-the-job training from the government as an apprentice carpenter for right in Morrissey.
Uh-huh.
And then I worked there for 2 years, and then I got a job at Harris, and I worked there and retired.
How long were you at Harris?
38 years.
38 years. So these people have paid their dues. I've retired from Customs 30 years. Poor Tom Bassa here, he's still working. Not only that, but he spends his evenings helping the village of Rouse's Point. We'll take a short break. We're, again, at the Knights of Columbus building in Champlain, New York. We're going to keep going, okay? I thought we had battery problems, but we don't. Okay, we're now going to get to this point where we're going to have to talk about the invasion. This is where we are now, gentlemen. We'll start with you, Leon. You left from which, where were you on land last before you went to
Camp
Iwo Jima?
Pendleton.
You were on a ship all that time. You never landed in any other?
No, I left Camp Pendleton, and I went from there to Hawaii.
Right.
We had more maneuvers there at Hawaii while the 5th Marine Division was being formed. So from Camp Pendleton, we went to Camp Pendleton to Hawaii.
Right.
From Hawaii, when we went overseas, we joined up with the second.
The Second Army, not Army, Second. Now, did you land on any of these other places? Were you on, for instance, did you ever stop at Saipan or
Yeah, we
Tinian?
stopped at Saipan.
Okay, the battle was over at
Yeah, it was
Saipan.
over.
You had already left Saipan by that time. All right. And they never met each other while all the time they were in the service. They were in boot camp together. They were on the Isle of Iwo Jima together. And that's the first day. They weren't there very long, either one of them, but they were there. All right. So,
But we stopped here.
and then we
refueled,
talked. Yep.
and then from there we ran
Wait,
it over.
okay, went over to Iwo Jima.
This here's our
Okay.
our route to Japan.
The night before, on the 18th, which would be like yesterday as we're watching this, on Saturday. The 18th, did you know you were going somewhere the next morning? Did you know that far ahead that
I
the
think
next
we-
day
I
was,
think we
did.
you knew that next day was
I
it?
think we did, yeah.
And you knew where you were going? You knew you were going to Iwo
I think we
Jima.
did.
We got our orders way before the next, we had at least, we were aboard ship, but we knew where we were going.
Okay. And you got your last good night's sleep and you slept real well.
Yo,
Because you knew that you were, that has to be a tough night, huh? A lot of thinking, a lot of letter writing.
That's one time when everybody goes to church.
Everybody. Are you telling me that even the non-believers believe the night before? You think they do, huh?
Yeah, they do.
You agree with that, Leon?
Yeah.
All right. So that you went on different ships, obviously. You were on different ships. And were you both in the first wave? Do you remember? Were you in that first
I was
wave?
in the first
You were in the
wave.
first wave at 9 o'clock in the morning on the 19th. Their time, obviously. You were in that first wave. And were you also?
No, I was in the, I think it was the second or third one.
Second or third wave. Now remember, this book that's about the 5th Division, and maybe Calvin could freeze this picture. They could each tell us a little bit about what you're going to see here, because I can't do it without looking at it. Okay, okay, you got the big picture too. Okay, this one here, just a little bit here. If you can see, the 5th, the 4th were
Way over on the right.
on the right. The blue line that you see that goes to the right, it goes off, where it says yellow 1 area, yellow 2, blue 1, blue 2, is where the 4th landed.
I don't have that.
You don't have that? Okay. Well, no, I was going to say here, that's why if you could freeze this in, get an idea of... Now, you got to remember, first of all, this island from here to here It's no longer than from here to Rouse's Point's Customs House. That's 6 miles, give or take, and this is a little over 5 miles. So you were in that blue line you see off to the, right in the middle here, and where it says yellow 1, and you went off to the right. They landed on the shore, and the 5th Division landed
Red 1 and 2.
Red 1 and 2, and we're only talking here, people, less than a quarter of a mile apart, right? Maybe 500 yards apart in that area. Okay, so you got there first wave. What happens now when you get your ship? You're on the ship. What kind of a ship were you on? The APA?
No, we were on LSD.
All the way through here?
Yeah.
Did they unload?
Well, we come out, we called them alligators.
Okay.
And then we landed with them.
Yeah, but you were on a bigger ship?
No.
Never.
LSD.
You came all the way from the island on that?
LST is
LST.
ocean going.
Okay. How many people on that LSD? Couple hundred, 300?
No.
Not that many, huh? Trying to think what they are. All right. So then you went. They brought you. How close could you? They didn't go up on shore. You had to get up in the water.
They dropped us off, and we call them alligators.
Now, were there firing by the ships onto the island when you landed?
Oh, yes.
Okay. And tell us a little bit now, for instance, now you got off how far before you got out of the water? How far out were you?
These bring you right on
Right
land.
up to land, okay.
Yeah.
Now, there was nobody shooting at you at this point with individual shells, or were they? As you landed?
Not as we landed.
Not as you landed.
5 minutes after. They were.
You thought that you had it made when you first landed, John?
Right.
All right. As we're talking, well, tell me what you can remember here as you landed. What was happening? What do you do first? Now, you were ahead of a squad.
Right.
You were the sergeant and at the head of a squad.
There's your LSD.
Okay. Here is an LST. You see this one's got a number of 201. That's the LST. And look at the number that are landing in here. You can see them all coming into shore. And there's no bullets raining down on them. They say we got it made. Right there. We're going to be all right. Now, to show you what's happening, there was another picture in this book. This gives you an idea of the different number of boats, and this is looking out on the water here. You can see all the various LSTs and the ships that are out there. There's hundreds of them, literally hundreds, that are there, and they're coming ashore and so forth. All right. The first thing you do is want to get behind something, I suppose.
Nothing to get behind.
Nothing to get behind. That's the point. That's the point. If you look at this same picture, it's nothing but flat land. Now, the frogmen came in the night before, but they found that there was a lot of sand or not very firm ground. Is that right, Jack?
Right.
What did it feel like when you came ashore and that stuff? Had you practiced in this kind of...
Not that kind of stuff.
Not that kind of stuff?
No.
Volcanic ash is what it is.
Right.
This deep or more. And it's just like being in, as I read on some place, it says like getting a pile of wheat and trying to get a foothold in it, right?
Right.
Yep. Now, were there tanks landing with you at the time?
No.
Just the men at this point?
Right.
Okay. So, how far do you get up before you land on your belly and say, well, now you start crawling?
Well, there was just a little bit of a hill. The minute we got over that, they started.
They started right there. So you dropped back over the hill?
No.
You kept going?
We dropped on the ground.
Yeah, but I mean, then did you fall back beyond the hill?
No.
You
Never went backwards.
Never went backwards. At this point, you've got to remember that big picture that Tom has, and this is where I guess you landed right about in here. The objection, first of all, is that first airfield, right?
Not for us.
Not for you.
No.
You were to go up.
We landed and turned right away.
Okay, you were going to turn right.
The
The fifth was going to go to the airfield. Okay. And remember, Sarabachi's here, and they're firing down, and and as Tom said, all the people back here are firing, and they got all their pinpoints. They just keep firing. And while they're firing, we're going to say, let's take a short break. We'll be right back and come back to Iwo Jima, where Jack has landed, and At this point, Leon's still safe in a ship out there. They aren't firing at the ships. Okay, be right back. Jack is landed on Iwo Jima, and maybe just a few feet he went over a little rise, and then all hell broke loose. What happened now for a while, Jack? Tell us.
We started getting machine gun fire. And that's when I hit the shell hole. I stayed there for a few hours till we knocked it out, and then we started moving right. And I moved probably 150 feet, and I got hit. But that was taking us 9 hours to move that far.
I just take 150 feet, is that much further than...
Home plate to second base.
That's right, home plate and second base. And you're not, and you can't dig a foxhole.
Oh, no.
It's impossible because of the...
It's so loose, it just fall in.
So what, you were in the holes where the...
If you found a motor hole or shell hole, you crawled in there. And I got hit, and there was one man left after me on my squad.
You're telling me that out of 13 that were, plus your machine gunners, when you landed there at 9 o'clock, after you got hit, there's only one left that was not injured or killed.
Right. In my squad.
When you're in this martyr hole that you talked about, you know, you're you're down there, are you only with your own squad or are other squads awfully close to you?
Never knew.
You never knew. Were you marked at all to indicate who your people were with a color, right, that you would know who were your people?
No.
You didn't have to do much squad leadership at that point, did you?
Not-
Just stay down.
No, not at all. We didn't have a chance to.
Yeah. Now, can you see the pillboxes?
No,
were firing?
because they were quite a ways away from us. If you look at that, we was in a gully, and they were up in the air. So that'd be like going down the river here and have people shooting at you from both sides of the river.
And you're laying down in a boat as you go. You can't get up because they're firing at you when you put your head up.
You try to put your head up, but
Yeah. In the meantime, there's mortars coming in. What's a mortar? What is a mortar? What are you guys? Tell me, what are we talking about? Is it a howitzer or a cannon that's shooting off, or what?
well, that's pretty hard to explain, the motor. I know what it is.
But I mean, what's firing it? It's a big
It's a
shell?
big tube.
Okay.
It's a round tube, and the shell is probably foot long.
And as it lands, it explodes.
Right, just like a bomb or
Okay.
a
And it's
grenade
not,
or anything.
and
Something-
inside of it is,
Something like a bazooka.
Yeah,
okay, inside of it is not a powder, it's shrapnel,
right.
which are pieces of steel
Mhm.
in all directions.
Right.
Can do a lot of damage. And when that lands, it's an explosion, and these are the type of craters you were down in? Okay. Anybody in the hole with you when you were in that one crater?
Oh yeah, there was 5 or 6 of us there.
Well, if there were 5 or 6, and when you got hit, were others hit at the same time?
Well, I didn't get hit there.
Oh,
I
you-
moved out from there. As I was walking towards the higher ground, that's when I got motor shell. They never took the shrapnel out.
Oh, now just a second. So you did, it wasn't a bullet that hit you here. You got hit by a bullet before one object. This was an explosion,
Right,
and it got you front or back?
back.
In the back. And you went down.
No,
No?
I was able to stand up. My arm fell behind me, and I thought I had lost my arm, but it was all numbed out, that's all.
Then what happens?
Then I went aboard ship.
Well, whoa, you went too quick. You holler Corman, or do you...
Yes.
Okay. And how far are you from the water at this point? 200 feet?
No, I could, about 20 feet. Like I keep telling you, we
Yes.
turn right.
Oh, so you were running parallel with the shore.
Right.
Okay, yes. And remember, there's nothing but loose, not even sand, like powder. Huh?
Right. Trying to walk on grease.
Yeah. Now, what do? Do you say you are going to head down near the water? You head to a corpsman comes to you?
He If he sends you back, then you go.
Uh-huh.
But then you go back way to the landing area.
So you all had to walk south along the shore or whatever, and you're walking.
Right.
Well,
At that time, you don't give a shit if you get hit or not.
you don't really care at that, but you want to get out of there, huh?
Right.
Yes, yes. So now, once you went, well, in your case, there wasn't much question of who was going to take over. There's only one left, right? Now, of the 13 that got hit, 12 who got hit, including yourself, how many were killed? Do you know?
I have
You
no
have no idea. You lost contact there. Right. So you went back to one of the small, the LST or a small landing ship?
No, I went aboard a big ship.
But they'd gone a little ship first, LCI or something?
Yeah,
And then they carried you out to the ship.
right.
A hospital ship. And then do they have to operate on you? Did they
No,
operate?
they didn't operate.
Right.
No, they didn't do nothing till it got gangrene, and then they. There was more important.
Yeah, more important thing, yeah, people were wounded much more than you were,
Right.
probably, right? There was
Right.
life and death. You weren't in danger of dying at that point from your martyr.
No,
Okay.
Had you been with that same squad since Hawaii, or when did they form you into that squad?
I was right in with the same squad when I left North Carolina.
So you knew all those guys the whole time, practically?
Well, each invasion we lost a couple, but
And you got replacements? And
yeah, but I knew
I
them
didn't know
all.
they kept them that together that
I had
long.
one guy come 20 years later from Pennsylvania and stopped at a house. And he says, "Now I know why you were so tough on us. That's why we survived."
Was he wounded at Iwo Jima too? He was too. He probably ahead of you because you were one of the last ones to get wounded of your 13.
Well, he was one of my squad men.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you still correspond with any of the others? No idea where they are or anything? Huh?
Don't even know if they're alive today.
Uh-huh. All right, so you get back to the ship, and you stay in that area with the ship?
I stayed there for about 10 days. I think.
Uh-huh. Now, was that your last battle?
Yep.
So from there, they took you back where?
I went back to Saipan for a while, and then I went to a hospital in Hawaii. That's when I met Mary and Miro. And from there, back to the States.
She was a nurse
She was a nurse in the hospital.
from Rouse's Point.
Right.
Knew her very well from before, right? She was from Rouse's Point. You must
Yeah.
have known who she was. Okay. We'll get back to any other questions you might have about at this point here. You saw Iwo Jima long enough, but they were falling like hotcakes around there,
Right.
huh? Some of the units, I understand what I've read, had 100% loss. You figured casualties in Jacks, what do you figure, 12 out of 13? That's a pretty high percentage.
That's one day.
Yeah, you never did find out how many were killed of that. Okay. Leon, while this is going on, all this is going on out there, you're waiting out to be brought in next, right? The time's got to be long for you. Huh? Waiting to get, so what are you? You unloaded onto what were you on at the time? A big ship?
Yeah, big ship.
So you went out at LCI or whatever?
Went down the cargo nets
Uh-huh.
onto them.
So he did two different ways completely. He stayed with the same ship, landing craft all the way. He was at a big ship and came down those, it looked like
rope there.
big ropes go right on down into was the sea heaving very much? Do you remember?
Quite a bit.
Uh-huh. So what was your rank at this point? You were
I was just a PFC.
PFC. Just the PFC, you
Yeah,
said. Okay.
yeah.
So tell us what happened then when you got in this small LCI.
Well, then we landed on the beach. Then they opened up the front and we started running out and got covered as much as we could. But we didn't notice any firing for the first when we got on, but then it was starting to get very bad. But our objective was cut off Mount Suribachi from the rest of the island. I mean, that was our thing to do.
So you're in
To
here,
go from the east to the west.
you want to go straight
Yeah,
across
Yeah,
to cut this end off.
yeah.
Okay. Now, you were in a squad also of
Yeah, oh,
12,
yeah.
9, you said, in your
I thought
squad?
it was 9, it might be more.
Okay.
But then we got as far as the airfield, the first airfield, and then I got shrapnel in my
Well,
leg.
wait a minute now. This is not the same day.
No, day 2.
Okay, so the day one, was your group getting many
Oh,
casualties?
Yeah, quite a bit.
So then you're moving to the airfield
Yeah.
all that first day. All right.
So I think day 2 or 3 that we got to the airfield, and then I got a shrapnel in my leg, and it wasn't too bad, but it was bad enough that they took me out of the front line, brought me back to shore. So from then on, I hung around the shore with the quartermaster, bringing supplies in from the ship.
You did,
Oh yeah.
even though you had the shrapnel.
Well, it wasn't too bad, but bad enough so I couldn't walk too much. So that was my job, working with the quartermaster outfit. After that,
So you stayed there even though you had been injured too.
I stayed right there. I think until the first or second ship went back to Hawaii.
But we're not firing anymore. You
No,
were not fighting as
no.
such. The fighting was more inland at that
Yeah.
time, huh? Do you remember the feeling when you got? I didn't ask you that, Jack. Yet, but what was the feeling when you got it? Well, yours was a grenade. You told me.
Yeah,
Right?
shrapnel.
Did you see it?
No, I didn't see it. It must be somebody threw a grenade and the piece just happened to hit me. I didn't see it.
Well, if you got hit with a grenade, somebody was pretty close to you, huh?
Oh, yeah.
It had to be pretty close.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I've seen different guys protect their platoon or something. They'd fall right on the grenade.
We hear about those,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
you've
yeah.
seen that, huh?
Yeah. I've seen that.
There's very little chance for that person who goes on top of a grenade, right?
Very.
Very, yeah,
very
he's not
slim.
expected to
No.
recover from that. If you got injured the second day, or the third day, it means you had to have one night, if you pardon the expression, of sleep. Did you sleep that
Well-
first night?
When we were in Hawaii, or when we were in Camp Pendleton, we took that training and sleeping. So,
What kind of training?
well, see how long we could stay awake. We'd go out on maneuvers and night after night, or keep doing things. So I think I went 5 days and 4 nights without sleeping. The Marines did that. For every day that we didn't sleep, we got a day vacation.
That's
So,
good training,
I
huh?
mean, so we got used to keeping it going without sleeping.
Okay, so you're telling me you didn't sleep until you
No.
got injured. Okay. And nobody else did either, probably.
I wouldn't
right?
think so.
Well, while we were off camera one thing, somebody mentioned hygiene. We know we have to use a latrine,
Yeah.
the toilets. There are no toilets. There's not even a tree to go behind or nothing.
You gotta watch it.
It's going to be pretty tough, huh? And no place to wash up.
No.
Did you take time to eat those first 10 or 12 hours?
Well, like Jack said, we carried stuff, K rations around with us.
Uh-huh. So you just grab it off your pack
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
take a bite, huh? But nothing to drink. You had only food, nothing to drink.
Well, we had our canteen full of water, but a lot of times we had to use our helmets to wash up as much as we could.
Uh-huh. When you were once you got injured and you were working with the quartermaster,
Right.
where do you sleep those days?
Well, we used to, we carried our little pup tent around, and we'd have some place to sleep like that.
That's on the shore.
Yeah, on the shore.
And it was pretty secure at that time. There was nobody firing at you.
They were still firing, but it was lots better than being up further in.
Uh-huh.
fighting was non-stop for those
Oh, yeah,
few days you were there?
torn all the time.
See, and did you see a Japanese at all? Did you see any of them, or were they in the pillbox? where you
No,
couldn't
I've
see
seen
them?
Japanese, that's a sword that I got.
Okay, I mean, during that first couple days,
Yeah.
you did,
Yeah.
because I understood they were mostly underground, and they'd pop up and go back down, you didn't really,
Oh, yeah, I
they weren't
see.
up, you did. All right, now, you were carrying at that time a rifle like this?
I think when we were over there, I started out with an 03, but we had an M1s over there.
And what is this? That's not an M1,
M1,
huh? That is an M1, all right. Here, tell us a little bit about, this is an M1, now this is heavy.
Yeah, that's
This is heavy to, and this is so you'd put a clip underneath or down through the top?
through the top.
Right, and how many would it hold?
I think it's 5.
5.
Eight.
Huh?
Eight.
8 goes down through there? So you had these clips in your pack,
Yeah.
and anybody else that had fallen, you could take his ammunition, right?
You had them.
Or around the side.
But that's what we started out with, and then later on they issued the carbines.
Now this is heavy.
Yeah.
They like those in the island fightings.
Yeah.
I always thought that rifle was accurate for 1,000 yards.
1,000 yards?
1,000 yards.
Oh, it is.
But I always figured, why did they want them in these island campaigns where the distances were so close? But they liked them because that'll shoot through coconut logs, it'll shoot through cement, concrete blocks, and that's what they liked about them. Plus, they could fire grenades off the end of it with a grenade launcher.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Now, when you talk about 1,000 yards, folks, you're talking nearly a half a mile. Over a half, huh? 5,000, yeah, it's over half a mile. Can you sight in and fire at anything at a half a mile?
Yeah, we did.
But could you hit it?
Yeah,
Pretty accurate, is that, huh?
The Marines were qualifying at 600 yards
Is
right
that
up
right?
until the last few years when they went to that new rifle that won't shoot that far.
we had to learn how to take it apart and put it together in the dark, the dewjack.
That was all your training, right, in boot camp, too, to start in there, right?
It started there, but it never stopped.
But you had to keep it clean. It was your best friend, wasn't it?
Or sleep with it.
Yeah. Next time you're in your car and going down the Northway, pay attention to how long is half a mile. Just watch the markers along the side of the road for half a mile, and that's how far they can shoot. So it means that if you can shoot that far, someone else could be a half a mile from you, maybe, and have you in their sight too. So that's another thing you have to worry about as you were eating some of your rations. There was no tree to hide behind. So you had the same one from boot camp right straight through? Or not at
No.
boot camp? When did you get issued?
Old
We had 03s in
Yeah.
boot camp,
03 is what, a smaller
bolt action,
bolt action.
bolt action?
similar to this.
So
Okay.
World War I service rifle.
Okay. So this, of course, is all changed today. They got the Charter. They fire automatic, nearly. And this next one here is a Japanese. And when we come back, we'll kind of explain this. This is a lighter gun. And this has the bolt action that goes back. And it holds 3 or 4, I believe.
5, probably.
5? Okay. We'll take a short break and come right back. We're talking with 2 veterans of Iwo Jima who were there that opening day. Jack did get his retirement there. Wasn't there too long, 9 hours, right, Jack? Which was long enough.
Long enough to get me back to the States.
Long enough to get him back to the state after being injured by mortar. And Leon LaFountain, who maybe within 48 hours got shrapnel from a grenade. Didn't get him off the island right away, but got him off the front line right away, didn't it? And nobody wants to go that way, but there were others who weren't quite so fortunate to leave the island at all, except in a bag. We'll be right back. You're watching Hometown Cable. Our program's called What's Going On Here every Sunday. 5 shows every Sunday. Calvin Castine and Hometown Cable bringing you what's happening in the North Country. But on these reminiscence of the battles, 50 years of World War II, just letting you know that our people here in the area who never even knew, these people did not know that the other was on that island. Even till today. Today they found out, or 2 days ago when we were talking about this, the first time they knew that they were both on the island at the same time, and they were both brought up in Rouse's Point, New York. Again, this picture shows you the volcanic ash. No place to go behind. Just they couldn't get a foothold. They landed the tanks. The tanks had trouble moving. Even with the tracks, they kept going down inside. They had all kinds of problems because of this volcanic ash. I had 3 or 4 magazines here, a Life magazine back in March of 1945. There were very good pictures of the landing in Iwo Jima. Of course, it wasn't covered like it is today. The other wards, there were no TV cameras there. But some of the things before we leave, first of all, this Japanese rifle. Where did you get this? Is yours, Tom?
Yeah, it's a Jap Type 99, 7.7 millimeter. That was the standard Japanese service rifle. This was the standard U.S. service rifle, both theaters.
So the difference in the size, this one fires as far as this one? You know?
Yeah, I would say that the maximum range is probably about the same, but it's not as effective. And it didn't hold as many rounds, and it's manually operated instead of gas operated. And it isn't as good a weapon.
Gas operated?
Yeah.
You have a little container of gas?
No,
What are you talking about, gas here?
It siphons gas off the end of the barrel.
It does?
And that's what operates it and makes
Is
it
that right?
semi-automatic.
Well, I learned something. I didn't know that. Don't laugh, Jack. It's not funny.
But I've never heard a veteran that carried this rifle that didn't like it.
Uh-huh. The M1 is with the backbone of World War II.
And the Korean War.
And the Korean War, too.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, this is then we come along with a couple other mementos here. Tell us about these, Leon.
This one here came from Iwo Jima. I picked that up. I don't know how I got it back on board ship, but I did. I mean, I think I put it in my blanket, rolled the blanket.
You had a lot of ingenuity back then, see, that you don't have to. You forgot all that, huh? This was probably carried by a lieutenant or something?
I would say an officer.
And this is, you can see it's all cracked, and it's been tied together just the way it was when you got it, right? Now, did you find this probably on the ground?
Yeah.
And then it gave you something more extra to carry. You did this after you had been injured and you were...
Yeah.
All right. Now, who buried the Japanese that were killed? Did you bury those on the island? Well, you were there. Did they make them... You didn't have any... You didn't capture anybody, so you had to bury them yourselves.
I would think so, but I never did.
You never did. Because there must be dysentery, everything else got to be terrific, the amount of chances for infectious diseases during a battle like that. You know, it lasted for, like you say, 36 days. Now, here's another one.
That one there I got over in Japan.
Now, after, during this period, you went on to Japan and were part of the...
I was over with the occupation
force.
troop for 8 months, I think.
Uh-huh. Did you ever go to Japan as part of the occupation? No. A nice memento to have. I just do not have one because I didn't have to be there to get it.
This here was a write-up on the Japanese wrote that up on the price of my sword.
The what?
The price of the sword.
Oh, that's the price when you bought it, you mean?
No, that's how much it's worth.
Oh, that's what it's worth. Oh, Japanese. You got English on here? No? On the side? This is the Japanese, I guess, I'm not sure if it's up and down or...
It's up and down.
Up and down, huh? It says here...
1945, that's how much that sword was worth.
Okay, the price, age 300 years ago was made. It's in 45. It's a price 5,000 yen. Sword makers, Yamashito, Skibiro, keep the Tadayaki a treasure. Oh, it's a treasure. So this is a real collectible thing. I hope you're it stays within your family.
Yeah.
As a memento, the things they went through. All right. Anything else that you wanted to cover that you can think of that we didn't mention that you want to talk about, Jack? Okay.
Okay.
I think you both said that for the last 50 years you've talked very little about this. Right? You didn't even mention it because you knew each other were there. Does it bother you like today to talk about this?
No.
It hasn't been hard for you today. I hope we haven't put you through agony at all.
It does me a little.
It bothers you a little.
But
Yeah.
it's all right though.
You lost some very close friends
Yeah.
there. Have you kept in touch with anybody that you
Well,
were in?
there's one guy in Pennsylvania I keep in touch with once in a while.
Uh-huh.
John Kopp.
And he was in your squad or in your
No,
platoon?
he was with me on board ship coming back, but he wasn't with me at that
Uh-huh.
time.
Okay, we'll take a...
Mention the casualties.
Oh, the casualties. We never did mention the casualties.
Over this list of statistics.
Okay, you got those there too. Let me tell you what I got on the paper the other day that you can... what things that happened, why it was remembered, for two reasons. One, it was the costliest battle in Marine Corps history. Its toll of 6,821 Americans dead, 5,931 of them were Marines, accounted for nearly 1/3 of all of the Marine Corps losses in all of World War II. So of all those battles that Marines fought, and there were a lot of them for 2-3 years, 1/3 of the losses were right there at Iwo Jima. You have some figures too?
Well, the Japanese, they estimate, lost 20,000 troops killed, and then there was 216 POWs captured by the Marines, and then after they left, the our Army captured another 867. But a lot of them were Korean laborers, and people had been hiding in caves afterwards. The Marines had 19,217 wounded, and an additional 2,648 had combat fatigue, in addition to the 6,821 that were actually killed. There's 27 Medals of Honor awarded on Iwo Jima, which doesn't sound like a whole lot to me when you figure what was going on in that island, but there was only 353 awarded in all of World War II. So that's a pretty significant percentage for one
10%,
battle.
yep.
And that was said that uncommon valor was common there. Of all the Marines landed, 30% were casualties. But of the assault troops that were landed, which is the ones that were actually, like these two guys that were in the actual combat on the front, there was 60% casualties. The average regiment landed with 36 officers and 845 enlisted men. 36 days later, they had an average of 16 officers and 300 enlisted men, but that included field replacements. Then they brought a lot of supplies with them for everything. They had the island campaigns down to an exact science by this point in the war. The 5th Marine Division brought 100 million cigarettes with them. There was a lot of other statistics I could have brought too, but I just thought that was kind of unusual, 100 million cigarettes. 4th Division had completed 4 campaigns in 13 months when they finished at Iwo. They were from Maui. It was an island in the Hawaiian Islands. 3rd Marine Division was from Guam, and they were supposed to be the reserve, but they were landed a few days later. Iwo Jima was part of the home islands of Japan. It wasn't something that they'd captured or tried to take away like Wake Island or Midway or one of those. And we returned it for some reason to Japan in 1968. I never could quite figure that out because it wasn't like they had houses there and they lived there. It was just their property and we took it from them and for some reason we gave it back. All the U.S. graves had been removed from the island after the war. We didn't leave anybody over there. And like I say, the invasion of Japan was scheduled for November 1st, 1945. And the last significant statistic that I have is 2,251 B-29s made emergency landings on Iwo Jima, saving 24,761 crewmen.
That's what you have to remember, that when they left Tinian and the Saipan to go bomb in Japan, originally they had the fighter planes from the Japanese were on Iwo Jima shooting at them as they went. Now when our planes got hit and were heading back to their home base, 1,300 miles, if they were injured at all or had disabled, they could land on Iwo Jima and save these planes instead of going in the drink or whatever. And you said 2,200 planes landed here during that time. So after Iwo Jima in February, 3 months later, I guess it was, they went into Okinawa, which is another disastrous battle for the Marines. And then they were going to be landing in November 1st, you said, on the islands of Japan. But in August, what's the name of the ship? The plane, the Enola Gay left from Saipan or Tinian, and when it dropped the first one on Hiroshima, which I think was right here, and then the second one on Nagasaki, and that would then the war ended in the 14th, I think, of August 1945, which ended and saved thousands and thousands of lives that they didn't have to hedge hop all the way up like this. So that's why we were here. Again, that picture we showed you raising the, this is the man who took the picture, named Joe Rosenthal. He was an Associated Press photographer, 33 years old at the time. He's now 83 years old. Turned out to be probably the most famous picture ever in wartime. It was not the first flag that was installed on top of Suribachi. There's been a lot of rumors now. This is Sunday's paper. It shows the 6 Marines who raised the flag. They put up a small flag first. They went up and put the first flag up, and they thought someone might steal it. It was pretty small and would be gone, so they decided they'd raise another. This was not, I repeat, not a posed picture. It was, they went up and he just was there and he took the picture very quickly. But there were some comments made later. There was a posed picture. It's this one right here, where he got all the Marines that were up there to pose next to the flag. But the actual picture that has come down over the times was not posed. It was an actual picture. The 6 Marines that were in that original picture was an Indian by the name of Ira Hayes, died at the age of 32. He became an alcoholic when he came back from the service. Johnny Cash had a song written by him. Franklin Sousley killed in action later. Michael Strank killed in action later. Navy Pharmacist May 2nd Class John Bradley. Rady Gagne, a corporal, and Corporal Harlan Block killed in action. Gagne and Bradley died long after the war was over. So only 2 survived the war, and they died later on. Ira Hayes died when he got back. We'll be right back. We're talking about Iwo Jima. We're talking about World War II. We're going to be talking about it again later on for the VE Day and VJ Day, as I mentioned before. Anybody out there would like to talk with us about your memories of the war, what you were doing, what your feelings at that time, get in contact with Calvin or I. We'll get you on the show for May and then again in August. We'll be right back. We're going to close off this portion. Some of these people are going to leave. We'll be talking with Willard Martin. He's going to show us some slides of the Pacific War area when he got over there later on. And we hope you'll stay tuned for those. I want to thank very much the people here in the audience. We've talked to them originally with Tom Bassa, who put a lot of this together. And thank you very much, Tom, for your expertise and setting up this whole thing so we knew what was happening and why Iwo Jima and the others were important, what was happening and direction we were going. Always nice to see you, and continued good luck with your village of Rouse's Point. You're on the hometown cable quite a bit with your meetings.
Yep.
You don't mind that, do you, when he's over there like that?
Oh, we very much welcome him.
Good.
It's the only way that anybody in the village knows what's going on.
Okay. And Jack, thank you for bringing this up in the first place, giving us the idea that you didn't know you were doing, maybe, but you did, and for being willing to come over and talk with us. And we hope we didn't bring back too many bad memories, but your part should be part of history. Certainly were And we're glad you're feeling well now. You're recovered and, from your injuries. You're okay.
As far as I know.
As far as you, in 50 years, you've done all right. You're celebrating an anniversary. And Leon, thank you very much for seeing us. I know you said you'd get over it if you could. You're not always feeling the best, you said, but we hope you continue to feel better. And that thank you for your part in helping us with the celebration 50 years of Iwo Jima. And I'm glad you made it back.
I got
Thank you very much. And then we'll be talking back with Willard Martin here in a few minutes. Calvin's going to leave. I'm going to take the camera. We're going to see some of the slides that he has brought here for us today. Thanks for tuning in. And your comments are always welcome. Your ideas are welcome. And don't forget, your patronage of $12 or more once a year or twice if you want to is also welcome. We'll be right back.